Should supplements be a part of your treatment? Next, On Call with the Prairie Doc. Funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call Television as it continues to open doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. Additional funding is provided by Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy, Brookings Health System, Dr. Mark Bubach with Dakota Allergy and Asthma, Dakota Care, Dakota Dermatology, the Orthopedic Institute, Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee, and Swiftel Communications. Closed captioning for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided by the generous support of Avera, Brookings Health System, and Fishback Financial Corporation. The difference among prescription medicine, over-the-counter treatments, and supplements. Do they work, or are they a fraud? Supplements, facts, and fiction. Tonight, On Call with the Prairie Doc.
Good evening, and welcome to On Call with the Prairie Doc. Ever since we began On Call, we've heard stories from our viewers about some way in which an On Call episode had encouraged someone to seek needed medical care. So we are asking, do you have an On Call story that you would allow us to share with others? If you do, then please call or email it to us. We won't use your full name, but it would be wonderful to hear your stories. Now on with the show. According to consumer research company Packaged Facts, in the United States, supplement sales hit $11.5 billion in 2012 and were expected to reach $15.5 billion by 2017. What is driving this growth? Why are consumers looking for alternatives to traditional medicines? Do any of the supplements work? Do they hurt? These questions just scratch the surface of what we all should know before we spend money and add supplements to our lives. We'll answer your questions about supplements as they are called in or sent to us via Facebook on email. Call in your questions at 1-888-376-6225 or email us at oncalltv.org. To help answer your questions tonight, I'm joined here in the studio by James Clem, PharmD of the Department of Pharmacy Practice at South Dakota State University. And joining us via Skype from the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida is Vandana Bhide, a physician from the Mayo Clinic. So let's start with the basics. What are supplements and how do they differ from OTC drugs and prescription medicines? Jim, let's start with you.
Sure.
What's the difference between a supplement and an actual drug?
Sure. That's an important question to answer because there are big differences. So prescription medications and non-prescription medications need to show efficacy, effectiveness, and safety before they can be sold. Supplements are categorized as food, so they don't need to show safety and efficacy before they are sold. They are only catch the attention of the FDA after there has been a problem.
Now, I had heard that the FDA, when they, about, 20 years ago, required every food to say what's in it and what are the quantities, and they were feeling pretty good. This is good. We've got some control. We're improving quality. We're going to do this on supplements, and suddenly the government, the senators and House came up with a new law.
Yeah.
Because of, I think, lobbying by the pharmacy industry.
Yeah, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act in 1994 was what addressed that, and the hope was that this was going to, we're going to get labels on these supplements, and this is going to tell us what's in that, and they got to follow what's in this label. The unfortunate thing is, not all of the manufacturers many outside of this country, don't necessarily have exactly in those products what they say are in those products. And so we have to be really careful about that. But there are some safeguards to that too. That
there are some
consumers-
safeguards about what's in the... Now, there's a difference between an over-the-counter medicine like Tylenol and a supplement.
Correct. Because Tylenol needs to show that it does what it says it's supposed to do, and it actually can cure something.
All right.
Supplements cannot claim that they cure something, and that's a big difference as well. They cannot make those claims. If they make those claims, stay away from them, because that's not
claims for wild claims.
Yeah.
Claims that'll improve your sex, that will make you live longer, or that will have you lose weight are the major ones we need to watch out for.
Yeah, because the ones that make those claims and the ones that have been identified, many of those actually, when analyzed by the FDA, they contained prescription medication in them.
So there's some real danger in there.
There is.
Vandana, you are a hospitalist, internist, right? You know, you and I are internists together, right? Am I correct in that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
so you trained where?
University of Wisconsin. I went to undergraduate at University of Wisconsin, and I went to medical school at University of Wisconsin, and I did a internal medicine and pediatrics residency at Duke University in Durham.
You're a med peds.
I'm board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics.
And pediatrics. And then what? You and I met in Boston at a Harvard course. What got you into? And then you gave a spiel about vitamins and minerals and supplements and that's why you're here, because I saw, wow, here is an expert who knows what's going on. What got you into learning about supplements?
Well, I don't think I was really that interested in it, but over the years, especially in the last probably 15 years, and I know other physicians have seen the same thing, all of our patients are on supplements, and I could not talk intelligently about it. And I think I resorted to what every physician says, well, I don't really know anything about this supplement or this herb, but it's probably safe. And you never really think about, well, could it interact with the medications that you have the patient on? And so because I had so many questions and I had so many of my patients on supplements, I sort of wanted to see, well, what's the ballyhoo about all of this? And it was very interesting. Over the years, there is more information, more studies, but it's still in its infancy. We still don't have a lot of detailed evaluation of the supplements. And I think it's because of, a little bit what Jim touched upon, which is, manufacturers are not motivated to do studies on their supplements because, for the most part, they're selling very, very well. They don't have to prove that they're efficacious or they cure anything, and they're not supposed to. And so you can sort of make any claim that it'll support any disease. And I think that people are hungry for that. So I found certainly my patients were very interested in supplements and herbs and alternative treatments. And so I did a lot of research. I went to a lot of conferences. I was board certified by a organization that trains integrative medicine. And so, and I found it was fascinating. It really is.
Well, this whole integrative thing, in fact, the National Institute of Health has a whole field that says, okay, we're not throwing away all of this data. There's people who really want to know. And you can go to the NIH website and find out about this. What is that? Complementary medicine, or what is it?
It's the national.
I think it's the national school.
It's complementary and integrative health.
That's great.
Yes.
And if you Google complementary and then you go to the National Institute site. Dr. Bhide, do you have that?
Yeah, I think it's nccam.gov. So it's nccam.gov.
Yeah, that's it. nccam.gov. Go there.
Right. And the other one that's easy to remember is the Office of Dietary Supplements, the ODS.gov. And they actually link to each other. So some fact sheets, for example, are on the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine website, and then some are in the Office of Dietary Supplements. But there's a wealth of information there. The National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine funds a number of studies that are ongoing. So there's a real push to actually look at a lot of the claims that are made and see, especially where they help, not so much in illness, but in health. How can we maintain health using supplements and herbal agents?
You know, it's interesting that just to claim, you can legally claim that it does something even though it may not. And there are people who will actually do that. And you've got to not be duped into believing that just because they say they do it, that it does. And so what I'm asking is that whatever it is that we do, we should base it on science.
Correct.
You know, let's study it. If it works, good. If it doesn't work, then throw it out. Now, I mean, I think the medical profession is guilty in many ways as well, jumping on bandwagons that it isn't scientifically based or to prove a true significant difference. So we've got, do I have time to do one question before we, okay, last week during our Ask Anything show, a viewer called in to ask if wormwood complex is effective in preventing free radicals and parasites. And so I guess I'm going to, Vandana, ask you, what do you know about wormwood complex and free radicals and parasites?
Well, again, you know, the problem is there isn't a lot of studies about this. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that it's unsafe because really we don't know, but there really isn't any studies to suggest that it's an effective antioxidant. And when somebody talks about parasites, there's a whole thought that maybe people who have a lot of stomach ailments, even fibromyalgia, fatigue, that it may be from parasites in the small and large intestines.
And what do you think of that?
Again, there's not a lot of evidence that that's useful. You know, what I would suggest is rather than wormwood or other antioxidants. Now, if you get antioxidants in your diet, that's exactly the way you should do it. Most antioxidants other than vitamin D that we use as supplements have actually been shown in high doses to be dangerous. For example, vitamin E, except in very specific cases, for example, when there's fat in the liver. But in general, it's much better to get antioxidants in your diet.
Food is a good source of antioxidant, like colored, right? Fruit, dark purples and greens and blues and oranges. And am I right?
Right. So if you can get the antioxidants in your food, that's always the best. The other thing that may be helpful is actually probiotics. If somebody is worried about their digestive health, rather than wormwood, probiotics is probably, as long as they're not immunocompromised, they're not on chemotherapy, they're not immunosuppressed, then that may be a better alternative.
Jim, your responses to that?
I echo that completely. Again, it's one of those things where if there's no evidence, people really need to be careful with putting something in their body.
You know, there is a difference between scientific proof and marketing.
Yes.
Think about how much marketing is out there. Do we trust it? And the answer I would say to you is be skeptical. Not to say that all marketing is wrong. No. But, I mean, as my dad, who was a salesman, said, if we didn't have sales, the whole world would grind to a halt. But at the same time, if you can lie and people swallow it because they think they're getting something and they're not, that burns me. That just... Let's go to this. We get a large portion of our vitamin D right from the sun. However, here in the upper Midwest, especially in winter, the sun's rays are often hard to come by. Because of that, and because of the importance of vitamin D, we may need to augment that free source.
Several years ago, I had a lady came in the office with a fractured wrist. And I got to talking to her, and she had told me it's become a bad year for her because she had broken her foot about 18 months before, and then had broken her other ankle, and then broke her second ankle, and then had broken her wrist. And she's probably maybe late 50s, pretty healthy lady, which I thought was a little odd to have that story. So you always worry about some type of metabolic bone disease where the bone's not normal. And we checked her vitamin D level, and it was very low. So she had a case of vitamin D deficiency, which is a real common problem in this part of the country because half the year there's no sunshine. And it's also very common in people who are from Northern European countries. So we ended up checking her vitamin D level, and then she was treated with doses of vitamin D replacement, and her fractures wanted to heal, and she hasn't had any broken bones since. So it's good to know, to be thinking about that if you have multiple fractures or atypical fractures, think about vitamin D deficiency. Usually the vitamin D that you get over the counter is like maybe 1,000 milligrams, maybe 1,500. For vitamin D deficiency, we use 50,000 units vitamin D like 3 times a week. And that goes on for several months, and you check your vitamin D level again. So it's a lot bigger dose than what you usually get over the counter.
You know, a real story from Dr. Vandermark about soft bones because of vitamin D deficiency. I've been testing people for vitamin D levels periodically. I find that heavier people are commonly vitamin D deficient. I think less than 30 is a level that I start treating. And there's some data that say that 10,000 is toxic, so you need to dose less than 10,000 per day. And so I think you're fairly safe with 2,000. I know that Dr. Bhide, you and I talked about this earlier. What is your take on the value of vitamin D supplement, and what doses do you recommend?
Well, I think vitamin D supplements are very beneficial, because I think most of us really don't, even here in Florida, where we use a lot of sunblock, or sunblock is recommended, most people don't get enough vitamin D. And then people with dark skins and breastfed infants are not getting any vitamin D. So I think it's helpful for everybody. You know, the recommended for most age groups, it does depend on age groups, but for most, we're supposed to get about 600 international units a day. I think 1,000 to 2,000 international units in a supplement, especially if you start out deficient, I think that's safe. But I think once you become, you know, when your level is anywhere between, say, 30 and 60, then you can go back to either 200 international units twice a day, 400 international units once a day, or even 600 international units. So I usually stick with under 2,000 international units unless somebody is truly deficient. And in many cases, if there's truly really severe deficiency, we use the 50,000 international unit dose, but that would only be for a short period of time. The other thing is I have a lot of patients who forget to take their vitamin D, so they will take, say, 5,000 international units once a week. And so it actually does stay, because it's stored in the fat in your body, so it actually it stays there for a long time. And you know, your comment, your observation that overweight people tend to have lower levels is very true. It's stored in the fat, and so it's not available in the bloodstream, especially. And actually, the population that's been found to be the most deficient are teenage African-American girls.
Really?
And of course, that's a really important age group, again, because they're not absorbing a lot through their skin. And because being overweight makes your levels low already because it's not available to the bloodstream. But adolescence is a really important time, because that's when you're building up your bone density, so that when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, you don't break your bones.
There was one study, a German study, of people who were going out for, had to do treadmills. So they thought, okay, if you just took all the people who were going in for a treadmill study to rule out heart disease, that you would have a higher risk of heart disease, and let's look at their vitamin D level and then follow them. So this was before they did supplements, and they found that the people who had the lowest quartile, the lowest 25% of the group versus the top 25%, there was like a 5 times difference mortality rate over 8 years. And so although it didn't prove that supplements changed that, it was shocking to me that there is this high risk that goes with without vitamin D. What's your take on any of that?
Well, in the point that she made on the fat-soluble part of it. That's a really important thing for viewers to know about, I think, because the fat-soluble vitamins are the ones that you can get into trouble with if you're not careful.
A, D, E, and K.
A, D, E, and K. Those are all ones that myself as a pharmacist make sure I caution folks about when they're wanting to take vitamin supplements. The water soluble we don't worry about because they just
peed out.
Yeah, it just gets eliminated out, and so you don't have to worry about it. But I think it's really important for folks to know that if they're going to any dosing that's above what's labeled on those over-the-counter products and supplements, they really need to do that under the guidance of a physician.
And maybe monitor a level. Do you believe, Vandana, that there is data to say that supplements make a difference in longevity? I mean, the proof of the risk of it low is dangerous or might represent danger is there, but does supplements truly make a difference?
Well, I think that data is lacking, at least as of right now. What we see is there's lots of studies, for example, patients who have heart disease or patients who have had breast cancer or other kinds of cancer, that when they measure their vitamin D levels, a very high percentage of them are found to be vitamin D deficient, which does not mean that their disease is from the vitamin D deficiency. Unfortunately, there so far have not been any studies that suggest that it helps increase longevity or maintain health other than bone health. I think we are going to see, there's lots of studies, and I think we're going to find that vitamin D acts like a hormone almost in many cases, so not more than just a vitamin. And so I think it's involved in a lot of other processes that we're going to find out about. I think it's a good thing to be following levels because at the same time, you don't want to have a level too high. We worry about things like kidney stones and other problems if your levels, say, are above 60. So you want to kind of aim for that 30 to 60 range. Okay. And then, of course, remember weight-bearing exercise. That's equally important, especially for the menopausal population. And I think that'll help your bone health a lot.
What about calcium supplement? I'm going to ask you both real quick, and then we'll go on to questions. Do you think that we're overdoing it? I've heard there's some risk of calcium-induced vascular disease if you take supplements of calcium.
Sure. You certainly could overdo it, but again, I think it goes back to just being smart about what you're taking and you're doing on your own. Make sure you stay within the labeling of a supplement. If you go above that or need to go above that or a physician wants you to go above that, again, we need to make sure it's being monitored, which is something people can't do on their own. I think that's really important for people to understand that these supplements can cause problems.
We got a 76-year-old woman from Sioux Falls. What supplements or medications should she take for osteoarthritis? Vandana?
Well, that's really interesting. It depends on the severity of her osteoarthritis. There was a study called the GATE study a couple of years ago which tested glucosamine chondroitin, the combination, and actually in the subset of patients who have a moderate to severe arthritis, glucosamine chondroitin actually was helpful. In patients who had mild arthritis, it wasn't that helpful. So if the viewer has mild or moderate to severe arthritis, which many patients that age group have, then glucosamine is something to try.
Okay. How do you pick out, here's from email, how do you pick out a quality supplement brand that probably is not made somewhere else and is safe? What do you say?
That's a great question. And the thing with supplements is there's a kind of a safeguard you can have for yourself to know that you're getting something, and the label is accurate as to what is in that product.
And what is that?
It's called U.S. Pharmacopoeia, so it's USP verified. That should be on the label. It should say USP verified, and then you know that particular product has been tested independently, and it truly does have
what it says it has.
What it says what it has in it, and it's been tested. And
it doesn't have extra things.
And it doesn't have any contaminants or extra things at all. And manufacturers do this voluntarily, so they can voluntarily submit that. And so really, high-quality manufacturers are going to want to do that. And so look for USP verified.
Consumers Report did a review of that very question. what is in what they say that it is in. And when it isn't USP verified, they find that there's either from 0 of what it says it has to 400% or 4 times as much as it says it is. And that sometimes it has 3 or 4 other things in it. So, I mean, I think this USP verified is an important issue.
Absolutely, it's very, very important. In 2013, there was a study that was done in Canada of 44 available in the U.S. herbal supplements, and less than half of those supplements actually had the supplement they were supposed to have in them.
Less than
half. And more than half had more than what they said they had in them. So again, that just goes to the importance of you can't always trust the label. Look for USP verified.
USP verified. It's bad enough when supplements just do not work, but when they don't work and they hurt you, that's even worse.
Larry actually caught me at a basketball game. He said, "I'm just not feeling good, and I want to know if you'll see me sometime." And we sat down and kind of visited a little bit. And I said, "Well, you know, I think that based on what you're telling me, we better probably take a closer look at some things." So I brought him into the clinic and started looking around for why he was having bad leg pain initially. So the visit kind of changed from leg pain when he told me that he just felt like he couldn't do anything anymore. This is a guy that is very athletic, has biked all over the country, and I was mortified to hear that he felt like just walking up this walk, he got breathless. And so it quickly changed from just the neuropathy to figuring out what was wrong with the breathlessness. And in a process of working that up, he has a longstanding history of lupus, which he thought was the cause of this. And so we worked up what other reasons could cause neuropathy. And we were in the process of working up the neuropathy and getting the heart worked up because I thought he might have a problem with his heart or lungs. And in the process of working that up, his blood work came back that he had anemia, which I thought was odd because he's pretty healthy, good diet, had regular screening colonoscopies, and his anemia didn't fit the profile of iron deficiency. It was macrocytic, but pretty profoundly anemic. And when I got his levels back for his heavy metals, his arsenic levels were high. Arsenic, if you have an acute poisoning, it's like very high levels, but this looked like more of a chronic long-term poisoning. And so I thought maybe it was in his groundwater. That would be the most common place, but he's on city water, so that wasn't going to be the cause for it. And he was taking quite a few different supplements, trying to help himself with this chronic pain he gets from his lupus. And so we thought it's probably related to supplements.
Some of the supplements I've been taking probably for 5-6 years. I've had diagnosed with lupus about 8 years ago, and they say there's no cure, so I'm looking for the cure, And so some of them I've been taking at least 6 years, and I think I brought 6 different supplements in that I've been taking.
I had arranged for an echocardiogram for Larry upstairs, and the echocardiogram tech called down and said, "Dr. Falkenberg, Larry's heart rate's 28." I said, "Send him over to the emergency department, I'll be right up." So one of the great things about rural medicine is I'm in the clinic and I walked upstairs and the nurses obviously were very concerned because his heart rate was 28, but he was really asymptomatic. He didn't know why we were all so concerned about him and felt, other than a little breathless, felt pretty good, no chest pain or anything like that. And blood pressures were stable, and I talked with cardiology and we sent him up for a pacemaker to be placed. And cardiomyopathy, which gives you the electrical abnormalities that he was experiencing, can be caused by both lupus or arsenic. And so it's a little bit confusing which one of those was the culprit. I personally think he's not having any lupus flares. He doesn't have any current high serum markers for inflammation. I personally think it's probably related to the arsenic too, but we won't know. The long and short is that he feels awesome with his pacemaker.
I have stopped all. I'm on some prescription drugs, of course, but I stopped all the supplements, and I feel good. I feel really good.
Yeah. And we've done a follow-up arsenic level, which is normalized. It's no detectable arsenic as soon as he's, as 4 weeks after he stopped the supplements. And the State Department is actually interested in the case because of a public health concern. So they have the pills, and they're running testing on the pills to figure out which one has arsenic in it.
pretty small world. Larry Luchin was my principal or teacher in D. Smet the years that I was in high school there. He was a hero and a dynamic man even then, and still is pretty famous. You know, I had an arsenic case. A patient presented with severe anemia on the neurologic floor because he was becoming paralyzed, legs up, and I was a resident learning about anemia, and they called for a consult. So I looked up anemia and peripheral neuropathy because he had both of them. And of course, when you got those two major things, it came down to arsenic poisoning was a possibility. And I found the meas lines, I found the things in the mouth, and I looked at him and I said, when I walked in the room, is your wife upset with you? And he said, how did you know? So it was his wife who was trying to poison him. And that's another long story. Any comment about arsenic that you would like to make?
You know, when it comes to supplements, you know, heavy metals and contaminants can be there, and especially again we've found that many of the supplements that actually get shipped here from Asia, and in that area, because there's no quality standards for the manufacturer, and they get contaminated with pesticides, heavy metals, arsenic, all those kind of things, and so you really have to be, again, very careful.
Vandana, what's your take on that story about arsenic poisoning and supplement?
I think it is common, you know, as he touched upon, a lot of the heavy metals and arsenic that we find in supplements is from Ayurvedic preparations, so ancient Indian preparations, and ancient Chinese medicine. And believe it or not, the history of these types of medicine, they actually use heavy metals to treat different kinds of illnesses. Now, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot of data that suggests that using the heavy metals treats anything, but for certain illnesses, for centuries, preparations that include heavy metals are used to treat different kinds of diseases. So sometimes the heavy metals are actually in Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese herbs and preparations on purpose, and sometimes they are not on purpose. And there was a study, I think, that everybody refers to a couple of years ago on Ayurvedic or Indian preparations that did have fairly high levels of, I think 40% had heavy metals. I think the key really is to know what you're getting and why you're getting it. So if you are under the treatment of an Ayurvedic physician, there's probably a reason for that, and to make sure that what you're getting is safe. I think the hardest thing is, for example, going on the internet and just finding a source that gives you Chinese herbal medicine or Ayurvedic medicine and ordering that. And I know a lot of people who do that. That's probably what you don't want to do, because there is a good chance that you're going to get any amount, anything that you can think of can be put in those agents, and you have no idea what's in it.
Yeah. There is a time and a place for, let's look at a heavy metal that we are all familiar with, iron. The iron's deficiency is a real deal in many, many young women in particular because of menstrual blood loss, and they end up with severe iron deficiency. And then the long and the short of it is you supplement them and their anemia goes away and they're much better. But the other side of it is that iron excess, there's a whole disease called with iron excess that can cause major problems. You know, liver disease and cirrhosis, hemochromatosis.
Yeah.
And so certainly that's something to consider. We've got a man from Peer, explain antioxidants, what are they and what function do they have in the human body? And that was the word that came out when they were looking on vitamin E. And that's the process of aging. And if you can stop the aging process, what can you do? And the vitamin E everybody was excited about it until we realized that it didn't make any difference. The real accident, the real oxidative load that we know is harmful and causes excessive oxidation is too much food. Do you have any take on that?
Vitamin E, I kind of refer to vitamin E as vitamin everything. We've tried to cure just about everything, I think, with vitamin E over the years, it seems like. And again, it's one of those things, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and there just has not been science to back it up.
The antioxidant is just a marketing buzzword, don't you think?
It's a popular thing for people to, it catches their ear, and they say, oh, antioxidant, this has got to be good for me. And the other thing with that is when they hear herbal products are natural.
Natural is
natural
another
means
buzzword.
Natural means safe, right? Not really, because a lot of the medications we have are natural or come from natural sources, actually 50%. And we know that they're not all safe. So just because it's natural doesn't mean it's safe. Right. And that's a good example of people need to know that. Yeah.
I'd like to encourage you to please stay tuned to South Dakota Public TV as their program South Dakota Focus immediately follows us with a show about elderly health care. The episode was recorded live at the 7th Annual Coalition on Aging Conference in Sioux Falls Tuesday, and I was one of several panelists who joined host Stephanie Rissler for this great discussion. So you want a little bit more of me, maybe it's time to turn off the TV if you've got too much of me, but watch the show following this. The South Dakota Focus is well done, and certainly done locally, so we appreciate that. 67-year-old woman from Rapid City, do eye vitamins specific for people with macular degeneration actually work, or are they beneficial in any way? Do you have any comments about that?
The vitamins that focus in on eye health, there's a few things, there's mixed evidence out there. Again, it goes back to there are some poorly designed studies that maybe it helps, and then others that said it doesn't. So I'm personally not a huge fan. And actually, there's one thing you have to really be careful with eye vitamins is if they do contain beta carotene. There is some evidence to show that if you are a smoker, number one, you should quit smoking, obviously. But if you are a smoker and you're taking eye vitamin supplement with beta carotene, that there is some evidence to say it might increase your risk of developing cancers.
Right.
And so,
and the lutein study and the beta carotene studies and the this eye vitamin stuff, the studies were done by the company Bausch & Lomb that sells it for an arm and a leg, and they were like 6 to 8 people or 60 people. It's not a large study. The differences only worked for severe macular degeneration, only a little bit of difference. I just say eat a balanced diet. You'll be just as good. Vandana, you have any comment about that?
I looked at that study. I think in severe age-related macular degeneration, I think, especially with that particular formulation, I think it's probably safe. What I would try to avoid, we know that lutein probably is beneficial, and copper and zinc. The key is not to get those vitamins separately. For example, if you must have a certain amount of copper and a certain amount of zinc. If you get too much zinc and not enough copper, because they work together. And so the danger is when you're taking vitamins separately and you're getting very high doses, because most of these you need very trace amounts. I think it's a personal decision about, are you going to get enough benefit to warrant the price? And, I think probably in severe age-related macular degeneration, it may be helpful. It doesn't help prevent it. I wish it did, but there's no evidence that it prevents macular degeneration. And again, what you touched upon, it's so important. This is really hard. I mean, we would all like to be able to do it, but if we can get those antioxidants in our foods, it's so much healthier. It is hard. You have to have, 5 fruits and vegetables every day, and you want to have colorful vegetables. And it's better to get beta carotene in your food rather than take it as a supplement. It's better to get vitamin E in your food rather than take it as a supplement. It is very difficult, but unfortunately, the supplements don't substitute for how you get it in your diet.
And I think the truth of oxidative load, the best antioxidant is eat smaller amounts. What do you think about mixed nuts? And not peanuts, but mixed nuts, Vandana. I think that there's some scientific data to say that that's very helpful, as well as a glass of wine a day or some alcoholic beverage, as long as you don't have an alcohol problem.
Sure. I mean, the wine certainly, and even grape juice. It's the resveratrol is in the peels or the skins of grapes, so you can get it in wine. You can get just as much in grape juice. So if you don't drink alcohol, grape juice is effective. But there is some evidence that has antioxidants that is helpful. People who follow a Mediterranean diet do live longer and have less heart disease. So I'm not opposed to that. The nuts, it's interesting because we do think that there's probably some omega-3 fatty acids, and we know that those are beneficial as well. Right. So and you're getting it naturally. And omega-3 fatty acids, of course, are fish oil. You can get it in salmon and other fatty fishes, but you can also get it in nuts. You can get it in olive oil and other kinds of healthy oils like canola oil, rapeseed oil. So I think those actually are very beneficial.
Yeah, we really don't know all the things that are good in food. It isn't just that little vitamin E or that beta carotene. It's all the things that are in that mixed vegetable.
Yes, they're working together. So we don't really understand how all of those things work together.
Right. While supplements can boost our intake of a variety of vitamins and nutrients, the very best way to get what your body needs is through a proper diet.
Achieving a healthful, nutritious eating pattern with many combinations of foods is the easiest way to get all of the nutrients your body needs to function. No single food can supply all of the nutrients in the amounts that you need. Choosing foods from each of the food groups will get you the basic nutrients you need. However, choosing a variety of foods within each food group will help you get even more combinations of nutrients that your body may need as well. For instance, some fruits and vegetables are high in vitamin C, some high in vitamin A, folate, iron, or even calcium. Choosing a variety of foods within each food group will also make your meals more interesting from day to day. Supplements of vitamins, minerals, and fiber also may help meet special nutritional needs. However, they do not supply all of the nutrients and other substances present in foods that are important for your health. Avoid getting in a rut with your food choices. I encourage you to switch up your eating patterns and try something new for a more well-nourished and healthier you.
Just one of many ways to improve your mental health is getting off the couch and taking yourself out to enjoy live theater. There are many wonderful theater groups around the state, and two of the best are the Black Hills Playhouse in Custer State Park and SDSU's Prairie Repertory Theater in Brookings and Brandon this summer. Prairie Rep is staging 4 plays this summer, including The Sound of Music. So get out and celebrate summer and improve your mental health. We'll be right back after this. Oh, we won't be back right after this. We need to do questions. Does cinnamon supplements help stabilize blood sugar in diabetics? Do you hear about that?
Yeah, the cinnamon is one of those herbal supplements. Obviously, it's a spice we use a lot of. And the evidence I'm aware of really does not say it does anything really to impact sugar, diabetes or anything like that. The evidence just isn't there.
Is there, Vandana, are you familiar with anything that
There's
shows?
actually been a lot of studies with cinnamon, and I think, theoretically the mechanism should work, but in real life we haven't found that it actually stabilizes sugar. I think it's perfectly safe to have it as part of your food. I'm not sure using cinnamon supplements is going to be beneficial, but I do think that if you have it naturally in your food, there may be some benefit.
Yeah, I like the idea of fish oil from fish. I like the idea of ground flaxseed as a supplement. I'm a fan of flaxseed because it helps your bowels work, and it has the same thing as fish oil in it. Any comment, either one of you, on that?
Yeah, there's definitely some evidence on flaxseed that it does have some benefits, and so I think that one is, again, because you incorporate it into your diet and make it part of your diet.
60-year-old man from Sioux Falls, if a supplement is actually strong enough to have an effect, is it then strong enough to have a side effect? Vandana?
Yes, that's definitely the case. And I think a lot of side effects, you may or may not have symptoms. That's part of the problem. So if you are taking a supplement and you do have an unusual, something that is out of ordinary for you, it very well may be from the supplement. And I know that Jim, I know Jim, you have probably seen the same things I have, which is we all commonly see liver problems related to supplements. I mean that, and sometimes we don't know what the agent is that caused the liver damage, but that's one of the biggest things to look for. And sometimes all you see is abnormal liver blood tests. Other times people can be so severely jaundiced and feel terrible. You can have side effects, unfortunately, even if the supplement isn't an effective dose.
Yeah. But sometimes if you have a supplement, not always, that doesn't do anything, it commonly doesn't have any side effects, and therefore it's a waste of money. A 65-year-old woman from Hot Springs, should I take turmeric for a post-cancer treatment?
Turmeric for post-cancer. I'm trying to recall this. Turmeric, I believe, is supposed to be beneficial with some nausea and vomiting and things like that. And there's some limited evidence that I'm aware of that there might be a slight benefit, but it's
not much. A 96-year-old man from Laverne, Minnesota has an issue with dizziness. Any medications or supplements he can take to alleviate his symptoms? Vandana.
Boy, I don't know of anything for dizziness. I think it depends on what the dizziness is from. Is it from low blood pressure? Is it from vertigo? But I'm not aware of anything that would help that.
No. I think if you sit on the side of the bed and you lay down one side for 5 seconds, and you sit up for 5 seconds and you lay down on the other side with your feet on the ground onto the other side, and you do that several times, it'll kind of help you with your dizziness. That's probably better than any supplement. 74-year-old man from Wagner, South Dakota. Does costochondroitin help with joints? What dose? Vandana. Some guy.
Yeah, so again, the population of people who have moderate to severe arthritis, it was shown to be beneficial, and I'm not 100% sure. I think it was 1,000 milligrams, but it comes in a very typical combination with glucosamine and chondroitin. If you have mild arthritis, probably not helpful. The other thing is, unfortunately, studies don't show that it prevents the progression of arthritis. Right. So it's really only to treat symptoms. But if you have moderate to severe arthritis, there is some benefit in glucosamine.
Okay. 50-year-old woman from Brookings, 21-year-old son is taking large amounts of protein supplement as part of his fitness weightlifting program. I'm worried about his kidneys. Are they dangerous? What do you think, Jim?
My spiel on protein supplements for athletes is stay within the guidelines and directions that are on the packaging. Do not exceed the labeled dosage.
And we talked about this earlier. You said chocolate milk works really well.
Yeah, chocolate milk's great.
62-year-old woman from Volga taking several supplements. Should I tell my doctor about these? Vandana?
Yeah, absolutely, because the supplements in your body, even though they aren't tested outside by the FDA, in your body, they're treated like a medication. So they're broken down by your liver enzymes and your kidneys, and so they can have lots of interactions with other medications
you absolutely have to tell your doctor about this. We'll be right back after this.
When you quit smoking, you get extra cash in your pocket right away.
Yeah.
1 month and you've got $150 extra you didn't have before. Quit 6 months and you have an extra 1,000.
Oh.
$2,000 in a year, $4,000 over 2 years, and a whopping $10,000 in 5 years. Nice chunk of change. So take a deep breath. You can do this. We can help.
More than 50% of adult Americans take a dietary supplement or vitamin. We spend something like $35 billion a year on non-regulated pills, powders, or patches, hoping to lose weight, to improve function in sports or the bedroom, or just to prevent illness. But what are we getting for our money? Stephen Barrett, MD, head of a nonprofit organization to prevent health fraud, states that consumers often fall victim to products and devices that do nothing more than cheat them out of their money, steer them away from useful proven treatment, and sometimes do more bodily harm than good. This important warning should not subtract from the fact that there are important benefits from vitamins and minerals, and there's a rich history how scientists studying malnutrition brought us to understand the value of vitamins and minerals. Vitamin C deficiency was discovered while analyzing a deathly diarrhea illness called scurvy, which affected British sailors. It was the limes and lemons containing vitamin C that helped the British limeys avoid scurvy and win battles at the sea. Vitamin B1, or thiamine deficiency, was discovered while analyzing a neurodegenerative illness called beriberi, which affected Japanese sailors after they switched from eating brown rice to white. By removing the brown coating, they unknowingly had removed the vitamin-laden protein coat. In the early 1900s, scientists discovered the vitalamine on the rice coating that would prevent the neurologic illness beriberi. Now, all white rice is fortified with thiamine, the vitalamine, which is also the source for the word vitamin. Micromineral iodine deficiency was discovered while analyzing both goiter, a thyroid enlargement condition, and cretinism, a childhood condition of mental deficiency, each occurring in landlocked areas without exposure to iodine-laden seaweed and deep-sea fish. By iodizing salt, we prevent goiter and demented children in millions throughout the world. But too much can be as bad as too little. Later, scientists also discovered too high a dose of iodine and other minerals, as well as fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and other supplements, can be dangerous. For example, certain supplements like chaparral, coltsfoot, comfrey, yohimbine, and others can cause liver damage, heart trouble, and increased risk of cancer. Obviously, the whole nutritional supplement story is very complicated, and we should be careful not to swallow everything advertisers promote. When it comes down to it, the best plan should be to eat a balanced diet with enough fish, nuts, fruits, and vegetables, and maybe to avoid joining the British or Japanese Navy. There are many, many people behind the scenes who work to help get our program to you each week. One group we have developed is called the Prairie Doc Assistants, or the PDAs. These are pre-med students or pre-professional who volunteer to come and help answer the phones or process the email when you call in your questions. Their pay for this is much needed work is that they get to visit with our guest docs before the show. Honestly, every week the guests remark about how impressed they are with the PDAs. This is our last live show of the season, so we sadly have to say goodbye to this year's group. They have been a wonderful addition to our production staff. Thank you all. Remember to stay tuned for South Dakota Focus immediately following our show. And so, from all of us here at On Call with the Prairie Doc, until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, can be a volatile conversation. But what is the truth? What does it really do, and what has it changed so far? We take a non-political look at the ACA next time on Call with the Prairie Doc.
Funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On-Call television as it continues to open doors for important medical information.
And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota.
Additional funding is provided by
Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy,
Brookings Health System,
Dakota Allergy and Asthma,
Dakota Care,
Dakota Dermatology,
the Orthopedic Institute,
Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee,
and Swiftel Communications.
Closed captioning for On Call with the Prairie Doc is provided by the generous support of
Avera,
Brookings Health System,
and Fishback Financial Corporation.
More nervous than I am for lectures.
Yeah, that was great. You did great.
Are you ready for after hours?
Is she on?
She's still. Yeah, you sent her a message on Skype.
Rick?
Okay.
Are you still there, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Can we do
How can you get so much background and everything? You must have a lot of people working.
Oh, I've thousands. This is, this is such a high powered deal, Hello and welcome to On Call After Hours, where we answer the questions we weren't able to get to during the broadcast portion of our show. All of your questions are important to us, and we want to answer as many as we can for you, so let's roll into it. 71-year-old woman from Volga, what do the doctors know about Life Vantage brand Protandim, a supplement an NRF2 synergizer said to reduce oxidative stress. What do you know, Jim?
Boy, I'm not familiar with that one. That
one's new to you. What do you know of that, Vandana?
No, I don't. I mean, so it sounds like it's another antioxidant. So again, I would be very, very careful with that.
Heavy on the marketing, low on the science.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they've got, when you see a lot of fancy, whoa, we do this, and they add oxidative stress, you know they're pulling a line. I've got a question. What is the value of St. John's wort? Jim?
St. John's wort is most commonly used for people with depression, and we have to really be careful there because there is evidence that it works in mild depression, but not moderate or severe. But my biggest thing with depression is depression's not a self-treatable disease, and they really need to seek appropriate help for any type of depression, mild, moderate, or severe. Right. And so there is some efficacy there, but again, really important to seek professional help when it comes to any type of mental illness, and depression especially. Yes. And the other side of St. John's wort, it's probably one of the most notorious for drug-drug interactions.
So it messes up a lot of other things.
It can really wreak a lot of havoc with your medication regimen. So,
particularly antidepressants.
Yeah, antidepressants and even some anticoagulation and things like that as well. So,
Vandana, you have any comment about St. John's wort?
Yeah, again, really is only effective in mild depression, and we worry about it. It can affect the liver enzymes and how we break down all kinds of medication. I mean, everything you can think of interacts with St. John's wort. If the patient is under the care of a physician and that's the only medication that they're on, that may be safe. But again, just like Jim said, being under the care of a physician, I think is very important. The other thing is what I see a lot is people who are already on antidepressants and then they add St. John's wort without telling their physician. And actually there you really can get in trouble because you can get very high levels of serotonin. So it's appropriate in the right setting, but does have a lot of medication interactions in the liver.
88-year-old woman from Sioux Falls, what other kind of painkiller can she use besides morphine? Are there any supplements that are useful for pain? Jim?
Well, supplements for pain, again, pain management is a whole other topic, right? But really, if you're under treatment with morphine, I mean, you're obviously using some very strong
heavy pain
analgesics for your pain. And so really, I don't think anything that's a supplement level type of a drug is really probably going to add on to that. Now,
to replace the morphine.
Now, there are some over-the-counter things we know that, for example, Tylenol or acetaminophen can augment opioids for morphine for pain control if it's a certain type, and non-steroidals like ibuprofen and stuff like that can help with bone pain and such, and can augment analgesics. But really, the supplement world really, in my opinion, would not really offer much to.
And it's interesting, the toxicity of morphine, you can go to, if you have to go higher doses, is there, but there's toxicity of Tylenol or acetaminophen too, and you don't want to go more than 3 grams of acetaminophen a day.
Yeah. I think the one thing I would vote for is if the chronic pain is from arthritis or joint pains. I think that fish oil is a reasonable thing to try. It's not going to be as strong as morphine, but I think it would be good to help lubricate joints. I mean, there's no studies, again, that show that it treats arthritis, but I think it's a reasonable supplement. You would want to make sure that your vitamin D levels are high enough. Some people with mild arthritis can respond to capsaicin, which is, the component that's in chili peppers. So these are more natural options. Whether they can substitute for morphine is unclear. But there's other, again, for joint pains, there's things like Tai Chi and other alternative physical kinds of exercise that are helpful. And so I'd encourage you to think about those.
Right, the capsaicin, which is interesting, is a hot pepper cream. It's a cream, it's topical, and you rub it on the joint. But you've got to be careful after you've rubbed it on the joint that you don't rub it in your eyes, and then suddenly your eyes are inflamed. 89-year-old woman from Rapid City, please discuss omega XL fatty acids. Are they safe and beneficial? Jim.
Well, I think.
Oh, Vandana.
Go ahead.
Yeah, she's referring, I think, to omega-3 fatty acids, which I think are beneficial. There used to be a lot of studies in the last couple of years that showed that they were very beneficial to the heart. I think those are not quite as clear-cut as we had hoped or thought. And again, they do thin the blood slightly, so it's very important that your doctor know that you're on these medications, or if you're going for surgery, it's very important that that the surgery team and the doctors know that you're on that medication. But in the right setting, it can help heart, especially people who have heart disease or have had a heart attack. I would check with your physician to see if that's reasonable, but I do think that there's some benefit to that.
I remember the original studies that threw everybody into this was from Denmark, and they looked at fishermen or men from Denmark, and the people who were eating a lot of fish had less heart disease than the people who weren't. And so then they thought, well, what is it in fish? And then they tried to separate it, and they found that it's the fish. It's not not always the fish oil, but it's the fish. That's the better deal.
Yeah, and the fish oils, they have been shown to have a modest effect on lowering LDL cholesterol and lowering triglycerides and lowering total cholesterol.
And it might well be just the vitamin D that's in there. Remember cod liver oil? I mean, that's what it is. It's fish oil, right? Yeah. Cod liver oil didn't go away.
I think the one place where we know the fish oil is beneficial is to lower triglycerides. So there, I think it's pretty clear cut. As long as your physician knows and is following your triglycerides, following your liver tests, I think there it really is beneficial. And studies I think about are the ones, again, just like the Danish studies, they're like the island of Crete, where, again, people who are fishing and fishermen from the island of Crete who had very low heart disease, and it's probably because of the fish.
It's the fish.
And again, the best thing is to have fish 3 times a week.
Yeah, it's the fish. Or maybe it's the vitamin, the iodine. Who knows? I mean, but think about the powerhouse countries of the world that really dominated for many years, and it was England and Japan. And they're just surrounded, eating a lot of fish. I think, there might be something that we can glean from that. 73-year-old woman from Sioux Falls, vitamin D3 on the bottle. It says it contains cholecalciferol, something that's used in Newfoundland as a pesticide to remove possums. PDA research says the problem is dose-related. A little bit is damaging to possums. Have you ever heard that? Vitamin D is damaging to possums.
I don't think I've heard that. Cholecalciferol is the type of vitamin D, and there's vitamin D2 and there's vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is better absorbed. Again, you have to be careful with the dose and and how much you're getting in your diet. But gosh, I have not heard them tested in possums.
66-year-old woman from Huron has krill oil been proven to prevent coronary heart disease. Jim?
Krill oil.
That's another kind of a fish oil kind of a deal, krill.
I'm not familiar with the evidence on krill oil.
I don't think there's a lot. People use krill oil, especially vegetarians who don't want to have any kind of meat or fish in their diet. Krill is sort of
pre-fish.
Right. So I think a lot of people use it for that reason. And I think theoretically it should be beneficial because it does, fish eat it, and it may be where the omega-3 fatty acids start, but there aren't actually any studies or any large-scale studies that suggest that it's as effective as fish oil.
Yeah, so the krill live on the surface of the ocean and they get all the sun. And then as they die off, they kind of settle. And then the fish on the deep, dark bottom where they never get any sun, they eat the krill that had the sun, and then they store it. And whales eat krill, and mares eat oats, and little lambs eat ivy. 66-year-old woman from Huron, no, that's it. 73-year-old woman from Yankton takes omeprazole for reflux. Some omeprazole has magnesium and some doesn't. Which is better, and is there a benefit, and is there a danger from the omeprazole? What do you know about that, Vandana?
The only thing I worry with omeprazole, so obviously it's very effective, especially if you've had a peptic ulcer or bleeding ulcer. So presumably the person needs it for some reason, so it is beneficial. Remember though, when you're stopping stomach acid, you're not absorbing as much vitamin B12. So you want to make sure that you're getting vitamin B12 in your diet, and you still may not absorb it because, again, it requires an acidic environment to absorb it. The magnesium, I haven't really heard whether it's beneficial or not beneficial. My suspicion is that the doses are probably small enough that it's not going to make a difference. If the patient has kidney problems, then it's probably not a good idea. But I don't think that there would be one that would be better than the other.
The omeprazole is one of the most life-changing things that's happened in medicine in the 30 years ago, 20 years ago when it was developed. All these people had miserable stomachs. It made a huge difference. It's Prilosec, and it's Nexium because that's just one side of the omeprazole. It's right-sided omeprazole or left-sided, I can't remember, whichever. You have any take on omeprazole and the side effects, Jim?
Yeah, omeprazole side effects, it can decrease your magnesium levels, actually decrease your magnesium absorption. So I think that's one of the reasons we see the magnesium there. It can also affect, in addition to the vitamin B she was talking about, calcium. So you can see an effect on calcium too.
They don't get enough calcium because they're not absorbing it.
It can decrease your calcium absorption, which can then lead to other problems as well. So, it's one of those things, as was said, when you change one function of the body, it has sort of a domino effect. So it's really one you want to try to stay away from taking chronically.
Unless you have to.
Unless you have to.
And but there's also this, it lowers your acidity in your stomach, and then there's more aspiration pneumonias, I've heard, as a result of that. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate both of you for being on the show and after hours and joining us and giving us your time and your expertise. And it's good to see you again, Vandana, after
nice to see you again, Rick.
5 years, or what was it?
It's been that long.
Yeah, 4 years ago or something like that in Boston. So wonderful. Thank you both so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on our website. We appreciate all of your questions and the opportunity to answer them. And so until next time, stay healthy out there, people. Would you care to have a glass of wine with us afterwards?
Sure.